everyone, and welcome back. Today we're going to be going over how to change the oil on a 2019 Yamaha Grizzly 700. Before we get started, we're going to go over a few of the things you're going to need for this oil change. Some of you might want to use your owner's manual. I'll be referencing this. You're going to need some type of oil for the machine. I go with Yamaha's oil. I wear on 10 weight 40 because that's the climate I'm in. If you're going to be riding this in the wintertime, you might want to go with 0 weight 40. I believe that is the other recommended oil. As you can see here, Yamaha recommends you change the oil after the first 800 miles. Then you go 1600, 3200, 4800 miles, or they go by hours. Now I myself go by miles because I put more miles on than hours. So I don't feel comfortable changing every 1600, so I change mine every 1000 or once a year. You will then need a oil filter for the machine. Once again, I buy the Yamaha one. It's easy, I know it's the right one. You're most likely going to need some type of oil filter wrench unless your hands are just way stronger than mine, which is very possible. And then in which case you can just spin it off yourself. You'll need a 17 millimeter socket for the drain plug. You'll need a 10 millimeter socket or wrench to take off the plastic parts. Don't forget the oil catch pan. You definitely don't want this going all over your garage floor. And then you'll most likely want to use an oil funnel when you pour the oil back in. I start the machine up and run it for about 5 minutes so it can warm up. And then you're going to want to take the drain plug out and drain the oil. I then like to come up here to the access panel, pop this out. I've already cleaned off around here, but normally I like to clean this off. I usually check it first before I start the oil change as well, which I also did that, and it was filled. And then I like to just pop this up, let it sit there. It helps it so the oil drains out better. When you do remove the drain bolt, make sure the crush washer is there. It's also recommended that you replace the crush washer. Once the oil is done draining, I then reinstall the oil drain plug and tighten to 24 foot-pounds. And as some of you have probably noticed, the drain hole was right here, but when it got close to the end of draining, it caught the skid plate and I have it up there, oil dripping. That is why I like to keep a piece of cardboard underneath my drain pan. And then what I'll do is I'll take some brake cleaner and I'll spray up there and get as much out of there as I can. The alternative is you can take the skid plate off. It's really not that hard. The next step is going to be to take this black plastic piece off so you can get into the filter. There are 3 bolts, one here, one here, and one here that you will have to remove. To remove this nut here, I find it best to put a wrench on here. And you will need a 4 millimeter Allen wrench for this side. Plastic piece will now slide out, and then this right here just pops like that. The filter is right there. I once again forgot about how much of a pain it is to get the filter off without making a mess, so next time I'm probably just going to take the skid plate off. But anyways, we're past that point. I don't like the location of the oil filter on here. It's just, I'm used to Hondas. And the Hondas around the outside, they're cartridge filters. It's a lot cleaner than this. But Honda versus Yamaha, that's a whole nother video. This is where I put the wrench on there and turn it off. Make sure you go counterclockwise. Now you'll want to make sure you get down around there and clean that up real good so that there's no dust that got on the sealing surface when you go to apply the filter back on. I will mention when you take the old filter off, there again, make sure the oil ring comes off with it, doesn't get stuck on the machine. Open up the new filter. The new filter from Yamaha comes with a plastic piece around it, and you can see how they've greased that ring. I'm assuming that's so you don't actually have to put oil on it. However, what I like to do is I like to fill this up with engine oil. I do it about halfway so that it doesn't make a big mess when I put it back on there. But that way the filter gets some oil in it and sort of primes it, I guess. If anybody has any comments on whether or not you need to do that or shouldn't do that, let me know in the comment section below because I would love to find out. For those of you that buy oil filters that doesn't have this grease on it, then typically what you want to do is just take a little bit of the new oil and you want to run it around the rim of the gasket. Then you're going to go and you're going to take the oil filter, you're going to put it back on the machine, and you want to torque it to 13 foot-pounds. And then when you're putting it back on there, try very hard to make sure you don't end up knocking any dust or dirt, anything inside the filter when you put it back on. I would recommend if you have a lot of mud or dirt, dust, anything down there, I always try to take a rag and wipe off around the area so that if anything loose could fall when I'm in the middle of doing this, it's cleaned up so I don't risk getting any particles back into the engine. You're going to want to pull your dipstick out, put your clean oil funnel in, and pour in your 2.2 quarts. I always like to pour in the 2 quarts. I put some in the oil filter, so I'm going to let this sit for 10 minutes like they recommend in the manual. I'm going to check it to see where it is on the dipstick, and then I'll add accordingly. Once that's done, I'll start this up. I will let it run for a little bit and I'll check to make sure that there's no leaks anywhere. After that, I'll let it sit for 10 minutes or more. Double check the engine oil, and if the engine oil is good, then your oil change is done. Alright, I've put my oil in, I've started it, I've let it run, I've double checked it, and now this will be the last time. It should be good to go. Whenever I'm checking the oil, I always like to make sure I have a clean rag, cloth, towel, whatever, and then I always just wipe it off with my hands. It's possible that sometimes the rags will leave bits and pieces of cloth on there. Push it in all the way when you check it, pull it out, and then you want it to be between the hash marks on there, and in this case it's right at the top. You can install the cap back on, or your check oil cover. Now when I ran the engine and started it up, I double checked everywhere to make sure nothing was leaking. The filter's not leaking, the drain plug's not leaking, so we are good to go there. Now we just install the guard back on in reverse order. You can see right here, the tab just pops up on the back side, clicks in like that. These are metal tabs that just stay on the plastic, so as long as you don't knock those off, the bolts will go right back in. Make sure you didn't lose the washer. I like to hand start all my fasteners before I use the wrench, just to make sure that they don't get cross-threaded. Then I like to write down the date, the mileage and the hours, and what I did for the service. And then the last thing I do is we go back in here, and on the 2019, when they update it to this gauge package, I believe 2020 and 21 are still the same. You have a trip A, a trip B, and there's this wrench right here. So that wrench is how I keep track of my maintenance miles. So I will just take the reset, I will hold it back to 0, and now that will start counting up, and when that hits 1,000 miles, I'll change the oil again. Thank you for watching. I hope this video helped out. If you have any comments or questions about it, if you saw anything that I did wrong, let me know down in the comments below. I'm always looking to learn new ways, easier ways to do stuff. And for those of you who are not subscribed, if you don't want to miss the review video on this or any upcoming videos on this, make sure you hit that subscribe button and tap that bell so you don't miss it. Until next time, thank you for watching.